Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, and joining us today is a new guest on the pod. You've never heard him here on the podcast, never heard him on the SiriusXM show, but certainly somebody that we followed a long time on Twitter. His name is Aaron Lesher. You can find him on Twitter at hogshaven, on Instagram at hogs_haven, and of course at hogshaven.com. They cover the Washington football team. Aaron Lesher, what the hell's going on, brother?
Hey, man. Good to meet you finally, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, dude. It's great, and there's a bunch of shit to talk about with the Washington football team. I consistently find myself, and I know it's just like, how long are you already, like, is your mind already cool with calling it the football team and everything? Do you ever slip and want to say the Redskins, or like it seems like it's been in our heads so long. I've been doing this professionally for 12 years, talking about these teams. I still find myself sometimes wanting to say Redskins. Do you is it like that for you, or have you officially made the switch?
Yeah, I think that happens honestly more with people that don't like focus on the team 24/7 like me, because I see that every single day. So as soon as it changed, I mean, obviously I grew up with the Redskins. I've been calling them the Redskins my whole life. But when it switched, I just saw Washington football team so many fucking times that it was like repetition for me. And so it's easy for me to say it now. And obviously, like, when you write, you can't write Redskins 1,000 times. You have to switch it up when you're writing. So I would say Washington anyway. So that part of it was pretty natural. But then I think it'll be hard once they finally pick, a new name. Like, I think they're going to do it this year, Washington football team, and then next year is going to be the new name, whatever they decide on.
Do you think that they will? You don't think that they might just keep it? There's been talk they might just keep it.
Yeah, so when they first changed it at the beginning of the last season, I was like, if we make the playoffs this year, because we're obviously a poverty franchise for the most part, or at least for 25 years. So if we make the playoffs, which is a big deal for us, we may fucking keep Washington football team just because, like, it's good luck or whatever. But I think that well, obviously we did make the playoffs, even though it was kind of a backdoor.
Hey, man, it counts. It counts.
Yeah, I'm not going to apologize for 7-9. The best 7-9 teams ever. But yeah, I think they will. Our new president, who's like a really young dude, really smart dude, is pretty clear that they're gonna change it. It's just they want to do like all the research and make sure it's like the perfect name for the next 100 years or whatever. So I think they will.
Huh. Well, that'll be interesting. I kind of like the football team. I think it's kind of cool to say that the football team's coming into town and stuff.
It's like a Premier League vibe, like football,
Yeah, and it also is. It's also kind of a subtle, like, it's some subtle shade to your opponent to act as if like they're not even a football team.
Exactly.
All right. So the football team definitely making some moves. I want to talk to you about a few of them. I guess let's just start off with talking about the draft and what some of the biggest needs you've identified for this team are. You pick at 19, I think, again at 50. You pick at 19. You have your normal second round pick, you have your normal third round pick, and one additional third round pick.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see those picks being utilized? And if somebody like a Mac Jones or something like that were to fall to 19, even though now you guys have given Ryan Fitzpatrick the 1-year, $10 million deal, which I really love for Terry McLaurin, and would like to talk to you about that after a while. But Ryan Fitzpatrick seems like he's in this. It's like he's been these like actors get typecasted for like this one dude's always like a cop in the movie or something. It's like Ryan Fitzpatrick's always a dude that comes in and he's a bridge quarterback to a rookie. Is there any chance that could happen again this year?
I think there's a chance. So I think kind of like reading the tea leaves, like reading between the lines a little bit. I think if one of these quarterbacks that they like, which I don't think will happen just because, we talk about it and, this guy's a second round talent. Like, he's going to launch.
He may fall. Then somebody trades up to take him at 9.
Yeah.
Right.
Once the draft comes around, everybody gets desperate. Everybody, things change. And so I don't think one of these guys, if they that good. Like all these front offices get paid millions of dollars. Now, sometimes they draft Mitchell Trubisky or whatever overall pick, but
over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes.
Right. But generally, they get paid a shitload of money to be good at what they do and evaluate talent. So I don't think that a legitimately good player, like if Mac Jones is really like, this Tom Brady or Peyton Manning type player that some people say he is, I don't think he's going to slip that far. But if, a Mac Jones or a Trey Lance, I think those are really the only two guys that could slip out of the top 10, then I think they will trade up if they like them. But I don't think that'll happen. I think at least 4 going in the top 10 and people are trading up ahead of us to get in there. So I don't think we definitely need a long-term quarterback. Like I love Fitzmagic for this year, and he's going to be a damn fun player to watch. And he's going to be, as much as I love Alex Smith and his story is awesome and all that good stuff, he's going to be a hell of a lot more fun to watch than Alex Smith, and better for fantasy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, obviously need a long-term quarterback. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think they're going to, put the band back together and see how far they get this year with Fitzpatrick and Heineke. And then I think they're just going to build the team like it's a really deep offensive tackle class, which is, great for the run game, just great for the offense and other fantasy players. We need wide receivers as well. So I think, if we don't sign even if we sign a big guy in free agency in the next couple of days, I think they're still going to draft one, maybe at 19, maybe a little bit later.
At wide receiver?
Yeah. I think if I had to put money on it, I would say if we don't take a quarterback at 19, or if we don't trade up for a quarterback, we're taking a tackle at 19 because it's a really deep class. There's a bunch of guys I've been watching, that are studs. So I think that'd be a good opportunity to get like a left tackle for the next 10 years.
Well, it just feels like one of these guys. It feels like one of these, like the Darisaw or Cosme or like Leatherwood, or like not all of these guys are going to go that early. They're going to be a few of these dudes that are going to be available, I think, through the 20s and maybe even to the beginning of the second round. I think there's probably gonna be one of those dudes left for the Jaguars to pick at 33. So I certainly think there'll be somebody available there at 19. Clearly, I don't have the roster pulled up for the football team, but I do. I mean, I think everybody knows what they have in their front seven, especially what they have along the defensive line, and that's the way to build. It's the way to build. You guys have done some stuff to address the secondary. So you feel like this is going to be more of an offensive draft, like so the needs are clearly wide receivers in need. Clearly long-term quarterback is in need. What about long-term secondary? Is that a need? Offensive tackles in need. What are the biggest needs if people are just kind of looking at this team and trying to figure out how they're going to navigate those first 4 picks in the first 3 rounds?
Yeah, I think if you look at Rivera's draft history and Marty Herney, who he's worked with forever, who they brought back, and then Martin Mayhew, who's the new GM. I mean, quarterback is the elephant in the room. I think they're going to be patient, and if there's not a guy at 19 or say 12, and they can trade up with the Niners at 12 to get him, they're going to wait till next year. But yeah, I mean, wide receiver, offensive tackle, tight end on offense outside of quarterback, and then which they could address a little bit in free agency, either wide receiver or tight end, and then. On defense, I mean, we've got those contracts coming up pretty soon with John Allen, Deron Payne, and then you got to look a couple of years like Montez Sweat,
right?
Eventually Chase Young. However, we're going to give him like $250 million.
Yeah, you have to pay that guy.
On defense, we just got like a legit I think we have 2 borderline, like not 2 like lockdown number ones, but 2 guys that could be number ones on any given day with Fuller and Jackson. And then we have a 7th round stud, was a rookie last year at safety, but he's more of a strong safety. So on defense, we need linebackers, mainly like these coverage guys, and like the safety type. So I think we're good with our starting couple corners, and we have Landon Collins. He tore his Achilles last year, and he's kind of a bum. But we'll see. So safety, linebacker, then on offense, tackle, and like just weapons, like playing, pass catchers.
But I will say this though, like as far as the football team, they were tough for fantasy wide receivers to go up against last year. Like the secondary, I was actually like that scheme is really effective as far as limiting these guys' ability to really take over football games. Add in a guy like William Jackson in there, who we know has a lot of natural talent. I think that could be a real boon for the back end. So those were all really good points.
Yeah.
What about another free agent signing was Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller on a 1-year deal. This doesn't mean anything for Antonio Gibson, right? I mean, he's just the GOAT.
No. I saw that come across my phone this morning, and I had a buddy text me like right after. He was like, "What the fuck, man? Like, what happened?" And I was like, "Dude, like this guy's like RB5 on the team." So I think they signed him at the end of last year, so they just kind of brought him back. Like, I guess, and he was good for a little bit with the Texans, and then he didn't play last year at all. So maybe he's like, but his body's healed up. I know he had some like injuries and stuff. And running back's just such a brutal position that, he's obviously proven he can start, at least in the past. So maybe something happens with, AG, and they need another guy in the rotation. He comes up, but nothing that impacts Gibson's like fantasy value for sure.
How surprised were Washington fans by our golden son Antonio Gibson last year? Because he was one of our favorites from the Senior Bowl. We loved Antonio Gibson, and when he got there, I think that whenever it was like it started becoming real for us is whenever I forget the exact timeline, but the Darius Guy stuff all goes down, and then Adrian Peterson gets like waived, and we just said, "Oh," and then Adrian Peterson gets asked when he gets up to Detroit about what happened, and he said, "Like I was wondering why they didn't cut me before, with how good this guy looks." And we said, "Oh my God, it's going to happen," And sure enough, Antonio Gibson, 70-something carries in college or whatever it was. No one was sure. He looks like a G, dude. Like what was the response to Antonio Gibson just there among those fans there in the DC area?
Yeah, I mean, like I think the crazy thing is he was super limited in the early part of the season because Haskins, aka Trashkins, and really held back the offense. And also we had some O-line issues, like just with chemistry and stuff, which really kind of picked up towards the end of the year. Like the unit finished, I think it was like the 6th overall offensive line for PFF. And like we signed, like our left tackle, we signed for like nothing from Chicago, like balled out. And, obviously Sheriff and interior linemen were playing well. So it just like was kind of a pleasant surprise there. And then he's like just learning the position too, because he, like you said, he barely played at Memphis. He's got like the freshest legs, like 'cause he barely touched the ball in college.
Yeah.
And so he was just learning the position, like getting fresh. And so, I mean, he had some huge games, obviously, like against the Cowboys and some other ones, but I think he's just scratching the surface, and he's not like a Melvin Gordon or like Jonathan Taylor, where they just like run these guys into the ground in college. He's like super young, measurables off the charts, like 4'3" dude, 230 pounds, so he's definitely somebody I would buy, even though his price is pretty high coming into this season for sure.
Well, he's gonna be a first-round pick in redraft leagues next year, and that's just kind of how it goes with the hunger that we're seeing right now in these early best ball drafts, just to lock up a secure runner. I mean, whether you realize it or not, man, he's kind of a feature runner. Like I know J.D. McKissick will be back. J.D. McKissick's back, right, next year.
Yep.
It just felt like with J.D. McKissick and a little bit with Logan Thomas, it felt like that was sort of, their target volume was a little bit dependent on whether it was going to be Alex Smith, and Alex Smith loved dumping off to these guys, whereas some of these other quarterbacks didn't. Do you think that Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be a quarterback that targets like J.D. McKissick out of the backfield with the same frequency that Alex Smith did? Alex Smith was kind of known as a dump-off screen game quarterback for a good part of his career. I'm not sure that Ryan Fitzpatrick will be quite as good, just because it feels like whenever you have these guys that are really good screen game quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, whenever their team is without them and there's some kind of backup in there, you see a little bit of a downtick from the pass catching running backs on the offense. I feel like we might see that a little bit about J.D. McKissic. What I have a harder time wrapping my head around or creating a narrative around is what all this means for Logan Thomas. Do you have any ideas about those two and what Ryan Fitzpatrick could mean for them?
Yeah, so I think Logan Thomas, I mean, I'm still fairly high on him. Like, you know way more about like the fantasy projections than I do, but I'd say he's like probably a borderline tight end 1.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like 10, 12 range. And I don't think it really changes his value that much because I think with Scott Turner's offense, I mean, they feature the tight end and running back a lot, but there's a lot of fairly deep routes that, Fitzpatrick's going to love throwing to the tight end. Like, I don't know what his stats are throwing to the tight ends, but I think he's still going to use the tight end quite a bit. I think where McKissic is going to take a little bit of a hit is like Alex Smith would just literally throw to him like every single fucking, like he would get like, because that's what he does. And so if you're in, any sort of like PPR format, you were just racking up points, even if, his catches were going for like 1 yard. So that's where, I think he will be less fantasy relevant, I guess, if you're in like a deeper league with McKissic. But Turner's offense like relies very heavily on throwing to the running back, kind of like as an extension of the running game and stuff. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it's total, bullshit. When you see sometimes with like these terrible offenses that just check down every play and don't test anybody deep. So I think McKissic will, down. Logan Thomas stays the same, but then like Terry McLaurin, he finally has a dude that can actually like throw the ball and is like a smart veteran. So I think his stock is going to go way up. And I loved him last season too, and he, kind of against all odds, like was still a legit starter. So
Terry McLaurin last year, 15 games, 134 targets. I don't have my let's pull up the calculator here. 134 divided by 15. So he's getting basically 9 targets per game. And if we just consider the fact that I pulled up this chart yesterday on the podcast, we were talking about Terry McLaurin that my friend Scott Barrett from over at Fantasy Points did. And basically his wide receiver ones dating back to 2010 have averaged 9.1 targets per game and 16.2 fantasy points per game, whereas his wide receiver twos, and a lot of these wide receiver twos he's had have been trash. And it looks, I mean, Lee Evans wasn't trash. David Johnson, trash. Donald Jones is trash. Justin Hunter basically ended up being trash. Andre Johnson, of course, wasn't trash. Eric Decker wasn't. Quincy Enunwa, Deshaun Jackson wasn't. Preston Williams, And these guys average 12.4 fantasy points per game and 7 targets per game. So it's not just the primary target that he feeds. He's been able to feed the number 2 wide receiver, which got us talking about. Well, let's look at the Washington roster. I'm not big on Antonio Gandy-Golden. I don't know if you are. I looked at the Sims guys. There's the Steven Sims, who's small, Cam Sims, who's big, and then there are a few other guys on the roster who I looked at and I just said, oh well, that's somebody that looks like I don't know if that's a practice squad guy or a wide receiver 5 or what. So, are there guys who I'm not thinking of that could step up into that kind of role? I came to the conclusion that if Ryan Fitzpatrick, he generally likes these, like we mentioned, the Andre Johnsons, the Devontae Parkers, or these big types of wide receivers. You can throw it up, throw the D-gap football, let him go get it, trust him to make a play. Don't worry so much about throwing the pick. That, to me, just given the size of Cam Sims, might make him interesting as an ancillary option to Terry McLaurin. But I certainly, that's one of the biggest things I wanted to ask you. Is that could that happen? Is this something that could be addressed via a wide receiver in free agency or in the draft? What do you think about the wide receiver 2?
Yeah, so that's a great stat you brought up with Fitzpatrick and the wide receivers too, is because I had seen a bunch of tweets about, you know, how he just like pumps up wide receiver ones, and you know they always have huge seasons when he actually starts. So McLaurin obviously is due. So right now, out of all the options that you listed, Cam Sims is the wide receiver 2, but I think, you know, week 1. The wide receiver 2 for Washington isn't on the roster yet. So I think even as like today, we're recording this in the middle of March. So like, you know, and the first technical day of free agency, even though stuff's been going on since Monday. But my take is that the wide receiver 2 isn't on the roster yet. Either they sign a guy in free agency or they draft a guy, you know, in the first 3 rounds that, you know, that's going to emerge for them. But if something doesn't happen, I think Cam Sims will be the guy. Another guy that you didn't mention, who I really liked, and I'm gonna have to Google his name now because I don't know, blanking on his name, even though I love him. There we go. Kelvin Harmon, towards ACL.
Oh yeah. I forgot that Kelvin Harmon.
Yeah,
I forgot that they drafted Kelvin Harmon. What happened to him last year? He tore his ACL.
Yeah, he tore his ACL in the summer of last year. So he's like running.
That's right.
I've seen him on Instagram.
That's like, a good call. That's a good call. That guy, I mean, if he's healthy, he should be the odds-on favorite.
Yeah. And Cam Sims, I mean, has kind of come on, and he's 5. So I mean, you know, the size and what Fitzpatrick likes is definitely there too. But Kelvin Harmon's a big dude. He's 6'1", but he's got that like Pierre Garçon type, like that's who I compliment. And they were both 6th-round draft picks. Random useless trivia for you, but yeah, I mean, Kelvin Harmon's is like a really like tough guy, like block dudes into the dirt and plays bigger than he is. So yeah, Kelvin Harmon should be healthy because, you know, he's almost a year removed from the ACL, already running routes. So yeah, him or Cam Sims, but I think they're going to definitely sign a guy to be the number 2, and then draft a guy probably, but more like a slot guy.
All right. One final question for you here. Of course, he's Aaron Lesher. Find him on Twitter at hogshaven, on Instagram, where I don't venture. I would get on Instagram more often if I knew if I knew our goddamn password. I still can't figure it out in our admin. Our admin's too scared to send it to me over text message. She thinks we'll get hacked. Anyway, you can find him over there at hogs_haven. And of course, hogshaven.com. All right. Big prediction. Ryan Fitzpatrick's 2021 Washington football team going up against now Dak Prescott's, you know, Pro Football Doc. I just heard him last night saying that Dak Prescott is a lock to be ready for week 1. They've got things locked up with their top 3 wide receivers in that offense. Defense, not so sure about it over there. First full year of maybe the Jalen Hurts experience in Philadelphia, possibly some new weapons added there with him, a second year for guys like Jalen Reagor, et cetera. And then I don't know. I guess the Giants just added Devontae Booker, so you know they have that going for them. But are the Washington Redskins going, or the Washington football team, are they going to repeat as NFC East champs and make it to the playoffs?
Yeah, man. As much as I would like to say that they will repeat as NFC East champs, and the division is sus, to say the least. I think there's a chance they make the playoffs as like a wild card, especially with 7 teams now in each conference. But I think my gut, unfortunately, is telling me that the Cowboys will seek revenge from last season. Dak is going to come back and play really well now that he's a made man with the you know, Jerry Jones backed up the Brinks truck to his front door. So I think like they're going to fix the defense because they fired their dude who I was very upset about because he was so fucking bad. So I think, you know, my gut is telling me that the Cowboys, and they have got really high draft picks too, like, you know, top 10. I think they're gonna take it this year. I'm not scared by the Eagles or the Giants, and there's a chance we sneak in like a wild card spot. But Yeah, that's my prediction as of middle of March 2021.